Guys, intro time.
Wait, which intro?
The wisdom check.
Oh, good.
Wait, no. I thought we were keeping the old intro. What's wrong with the old one? People like that one.
It was too long.
Yeah.
Too many fucking gifs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But can we keep the part where I yell more?
No.
But it's the intro to end all intros.
I got like what? 2 lines last time?
Do you want more lines, Tim?
Well, no, not really.
In a world without answers.
Yeah.
Wait, do you want to start with that?
Here we go. Exactly like last time.
Wait, okay, so we're doing it the exact same way? Let's start with Smoky Bar.
No. It's a new season. We have to have a new intro.
More.
Not sure why we thought this would go any differently.
Oh, well. Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom Check, where Jeff and Dustin welcome a guest every week to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome.
This is ridiculous. I'm starting the stream now.
Wait, where's my die at? Well, we can't start until I botch. And it's not an intro unless I botch it.
You're on.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Wisdom Check. I'm Jeff, as always. Across all the way on the far side is Dustin.
Hello, everybody.
And in between us, we are joined tonight by Dave from Nerdarchy. You probably know about him from his channel. It's very successful, as every time I've typed in Dungeons & Dragons, his always pops up. So come check him out. Say hello. Hi, Dave. How's it going? Welcome to the channel.
Good. Thanks for having me on. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good,
Oh,
man.
yeah, we're doing great. It's been a fun holiday. Did you have a good holiday today?
Well, you know, basically it's just me, my wife, and my kids locked in during the apocalypse like everybody else.
It's been amazingly, surprisingly quiet from the apocalypse crowd. We got murder hornets and cicadas and a legit plague, and somehow all the conspiracy theorists are not tweeting all this stuff out at, like, by the minute. I don't understand, but
Well, I'm just waiting to see what drops in June. It's going to be good.
You know, every month has got something extra. It's like a nesting doll of disaster.
and here I was afraid it was going to be a solid year of hindsight memes. But
Yeah.
Yeah, 2020, we just finally saw what was actually going on, I guess.
And they're like, nah, let's kick it off by setting Australia on fire.
yeah,
Man, it has been something. You know, it's ripe definitely for game material, I'll tell you that. You know, you start to look around, it's got inspiration everywhere. Yeah, we have a majestic beard in the middle of us, don't we, there, hamsters with hats. He's a new fan of us, and his beard is pretty amazing. In the Discord, he showed a couple pictures.
I wasn't even going to try to compete, so I shaved mine off today.
Fair enough.
You did the honorable thing.
I surrendered before we started. So
That's what I say about my hair, right? Because it's definitely going. And I'm like, one of these days, I'm just going to have to do the honorable thing.
Yeah, I keep just working on this growing horseshoe effect going on here. We'll see how long that takes, but one of these days. But yeah, we usually talk about gaming. We don't necessarily have to talk about gaming here, but it is kind of an interesting topic. A lot of times we like to get into the topic of how you got into the hobby in the first place, because we have a lot of people that come into the channel that are looking at it as a gateway to the hobby itself, to figure out how they can find their first gaming group. So what was your first gaming group like, and how'd you guys find each other?
I feel like when I started, like, the gaming group found you, or
Secret society.
it's true.
or you started the gaming group, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember my next door neighbor, Ian Wilson, coming over with the red box. And that would be like my first exposure. And I must have been like in kindergarten at the time. He was a little bit older. And then, like, he drugged me, or like he was the older kid, so that I would follow him around. And he would, drug me to his friend's house, and then I was exposed to Gamma World.
Nice.
And then, like, he moved away. And then I wouldn't see tabletops for another, games for another maybe 5-6 years. And, one of the older neighborhood kids rounded up, all the younger kids, because he was like 16, 17,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like 3-4 years older than me and my peers. And he's like, "Hey, I've got this thing you guys want to play." And he was like the cool older kid too, but not really. Like in hindsight, he was definitely a huge nerd. But like he would play sports like with the rest of us, and we'd play backyard sports all the time. And then it was like after like playing backyard soccer or something, he was like, "Hey, you want to check out this thing?" And then like he brought out the first edition Dungeons and Dragons books.
Nice.
Yeah, and and that from there we kind of like and like it's been a part of my life off and on ever since then. So I really D&D found me, and we were kind of recruited because that was like the other thing, right? You didn't have game stores, so you weren't going to go learn to play at a game store or get games in that way. We had a comic book store that did have like one rack for gaming books, and like I don't even know if your audience or even you really, have been to a B. Dalton bookstore or Walden bookstore.
Oh yeah,
that's where we got our start, man.
That's the only place we could find them then,
Yeah,
go out of state for it.
Mall. And like I would like drag my grandparents would take me to the mall, and I'd drag them to each bookstore because I had to go to both of them. I would just like stand longingly in front of the gaming section until they bought me something. So,
yeah, I remember those days. It was like there was one shelf at the bottom in the back corner of Walden's books. And, maybe it'd have like one, maybe two books if you were lucky. So, boy,
it wasn't because they were sold out. It was because that's all they ordered.
That's all they would do.
Those 2 books.
Although I will say, like, they usually had pretty extensive, like, Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, like all the novels.
Oh, yeah, the actual novels, yes. The actual novels you could find, but actual game mechanics, like rule books, were rare.
It was slim pickings, sure.
We have regularly mentioned the red box, and you mentioned it again, but I don't know if we've ever explained to people what the red box is. So why don't you tell them what the red box is for our viewers who...
Yeah, so it's like there's a bunch of letters. It's like BCIM or something, right? And the boxes were color coded, and a lot of people actually think like the box sets came first, but it wasn't. I believe it's because of the rift in the company actually, and one of them got Dungeons and Dragons, and the other one got Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, like a bad marriage, right? But the box sets were kind of like a more basic rule set. Where a lot of the old school games that the OSR games are basically derived from the box sets,
right?
Right, when you play as a dwarf, or you play as an elf, or a fighter, or a magic user. So and then like the different colored boxes was like as you would level up, you would need the next box set to like progress your campaign.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, was that back in the day with Fighting Man instead of Fighter?
That was after that. Fighting Man predated all that. That was even before I started. So
I was gonna say, I'm trying to remember because you dig back deep enough. Some things are just classics.
We've done almost 70 episodes of this show, and more people say the red box when we ask them where they got their start. But I don't know if we've ever defined for our viewers, many of which are 5e people coming in with 5e, what the red box ever was. So,
but it's so iconic. Like I think, like if you describe the image, then they'll know that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's that one or the AD&D book. Like I think that cover was the one that kind of fused in my mind. Because the guy riding the horse on the front, with the winged helmet.
Yeah, second edition.
Yeah.
Second edition, yep.
So
that's what we started with.
Mine ended up living in the back of my car. I got sun bleached out really badly, and so it was just like
I came in first, but first edition, second printing, because they had a different cover.
Man, yeah. I mean, it's really interesting to see how that kind of plays out because, for us, I'm trying to think of, like my origin story on gaming. We ended up having a friend of my dad's, so like an older guy who was a gamer, ended up bringing me in when I was like 5, so like, here's your first Dungeons and Dragons game, kid, I think I played either a thief or a wizard. I can't remember which, probably a thief. And, it was obviously terrible because you're a 5-year-old, but, it was great. I got that. And I think, my sister, we got her in with, ElfQuest because there was like a little game that came out for that. So it was like a nice little transition from, making up stories with your sibling and, going into an actual more structured, organized game.
It must have been a thief because back in those days you could not play a wizard. You had to get 10 levels
Yeah.
in order to be a wizard.
Probably then. Yeah, it's hard to remember back that far, but
The wizard of the party was an investment that the rest of the party made. They had to protect and nurture it for about 9 months till it hatched into a real wizard, and then
I think it was
they just sit back and watched it do its thing.
I think it was third edition where they changed it and they just started as a wizard. But prior to that, you played a magic user.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's when the thief the thief became the rogue.
Yeah. Wow, I forgot they actually made those transitions.
That was third ed when they became rogue. Yeah, they were thief up in second ed.
Yeah.
They had the thief chart, and you were like, and that's when we played, like, recently played Dungeon Crawl Classics. It was like a very throwback to those early days because it was back to thief and warrior and wizard, and the dwarf was just dwarf.
I'm trying to think back to this.
It was very throwback for us to take a little tromp through that. So
because I was trying to look back here, because like second ed is when they started doing kits, right? And I remember there being a kit that was thief. I thought maybe I'm wrong.
no, thief was the base class.
Yeah, thief was the base class.
And back then, everybody multi-classed. There's a ton of multi-classing back then. Like,
Well, because if you were multi-classing were completely different.
Yeah.
Because all your level, you split your XP up,
Mm-hmm.
divided it by however many classes, 2 or 3, and then then you would go up. But if you were a demi-human, you kind of like had the multi-class because you had level restrictions. You couldn't go.
you were capped.
Yeah, you were capped. And humans couldn't multi-class; they can only dual class.
Which was completely a weird, different mechanic, and why they saddled humans down with dual class, I never understood. But it was a completely different thing.
The early editions of the game were really weird. I seen on Twitter the other day, like someone was talking about going back to look at AD&D, and they're like, "This is completely unplayable." I'm like, "Sir, I would beg to argue with that because we indeed did play that."
Yeah,
that's like looking at somebody being like, "Those MREs are completely unedible," and everyone who's been in the military is like, "No, you don't understand. We actually ate those for years on end.
Well,
it will keep you alive. You could play it."
Yeah, I think it goes back to just like anything else. You look back at cars. You look at a sports car now, and you look at Model T, and you go like, "Man, how do you drive that thing?" But at the time that was innovative. And these are some really amazing things coming out of some creative people producing workshopping and coming up with ideas. And there's gonna be some rough edges for sure. But after you have 30 years to soften things and sand stuff off and paint it up nice, it ends up being a pretty polished product. People have to look back at history with a little fair judgment, I think.
we couldn't have the games we have today without going through those struggles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and anybody who thinks second ed seems archaic didn't play first ed. If you think second ed seems bad, if you pick up a book and you're like, "How do people play this?" You go back and look at first ed, and you'll be like, "Man, everyone loved second ed for a reason." That thing was ahead of its time at that point. Like,
we've got a video coming out talking about natural healing through the editions, and it's like 5e. Just take a rest, and you get all your hit points back, and and half your healing hit dice back. 4e is like, take a long rest, get everything back, including your healing surges. Mm-hmm. And then in third edition, like, you get into these weird calculations, and second edition as well. And then it's first edition. It's like, you get a hit point back a day. That's it. After 30 days, you start getting 5 a day back.
And that's assuming you're not taking any more damage in the meantime.
Yeah, that's assuming you're not doing anything.
There was a lot of hand waving with natural healing because it was like, clearly you found a town. You're like, we take a month off. Hand wave, hit points are back. We continue our mission. Like, nobody role played out the 30 days of just hanging out in the town, like healing up. Like, it was.
Well, well, you remember, especially in third edition and second edition, it was the we call it the 5-minute adventuring day. Because you like have a super hard encounter, and it's like, oh man, we're gonna have to chill for a while, especially if you didn't have a cleric in the party. Yeah, because
who doesn't do that though? I mean.
We were talking about it during, like, when we were, discussing making that video, and we're just kind of like, and Doug was like, "Man, how did we do it back then?" I was like, "Before you rested, your cleric dumped all their spells, and you hope nothing happened during the middle of the night."
Right? It was that, or it was a lot of potions. That's about it.
That turned your month layover into like a 3-day layover. It was like, okay, the cleric can have us all up to max hit points in 3 days if he does nothing but heal us all day long. So that's what he's doing.
Yeah, I guess
the good old days.
So what was it you used to like to play, or do you have that kind of a staple character you like to stick with?
So, back in the earlier days, like I DM'd most of the time. It wasn't, and now it's funny because now I've kind of like turned the corner, and I like hardly ever DM now. So as far as playing, like nowadays, I like to just try and figure out what I haven't played and play that. As a dwarf, no,
as a dwarf.
So yeah, I do have fondness for the stout folk for sure. And I do play them often. I actually struggle because every time I come up with a character concept and it's like, and it would be great as a dwarf.
So have you found that over the years, now that they've kind of opened things up for dwarf, that like you're like, hey, I can finally make new dwarves I couldn't make last edition because dwarves can finally be things they couldn't be last edition. Like,
yeah, like when you could finally be a dwarf wizard. And in 5e, I mean, come on, you could be a mountain dwarf and wear armor at first level and use an axe and cast spells.
Yeah.
That like literally, that's the first thing I did.
And everyone's like, I can't imagine why 5e is so popular. It's because it'll literally let you do anything you want with it, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say my first 5e character was Mountain Dwarf Wizard with the soldier background.
Oh yeah,
and I was like,
yeah,
this is so much fun. That campaign is actually the first one we ever played from first level all the way to 20th.
Wow, how long did you take?
So we were playing once a month with that game, so it took about 5 years.
Yeah,
but we did finally finish it.
Man, so that's a long haul. We do a lot of that ourselves. We ended up kind of in that same rut of once a month play. Just as adults, you start working, have families and stuff. It becomes pretty hard to get together. But once a month for 5 years. Like our games usually last 3 years, probably. I think.
The last time we had a campaign that we were playing once a month in person, it took 3 years to finish.
Yeah. We do mostly homebrew stuff. Are you doing homebrew, or are you doing more of kind of the staple stuff?
We like buy all the books and all the adventures and don't use any of them. They just sit on a shelf. No, so yeah, we're homebrew. We do pretty much all homebrew. But what we were doing for most of that period though is like Ted would run a game, I would run a game, we'd have another DM run a game that wasn't D&D. So and then we would rotate through the month. So we were playing 3 weeks out of the month. But what that did is like that was the first time we didn't just like burn out and quit a campaign. Like our friend Mark that plays in our games is always like, if we want to play a 15th level character, we're gonna have to start at 13th.
We all understand that struggle.
Yeah. So the campaign it really alleviated the campaign burnouts, the DM burnouts. One of our friends in the game got sick, which was like a different, like we also all three of them were kind of different groups, and we're like one session away from finishing my game, and it's been like on pause for like 2 years, and it's like it just sucks. And now there's a pandemic, which is not helping it. But like we've been trying to just finish this game forever. But like it doesn't feel right to finish it, without our one friend.
Absolutely.
So we're like, we'll get this done someday. They did make it all the way to 20th level. So like what we did is like the idea was we played all the way to 20th level. Once you hit 20, then we play one more session just so you could play, as the 20th level character.
Just say you did it, have the achievement unlocked.
Yeah.
Man.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I hope you got some good notes. Like I know anytime I run a game, it's a couple months go by, I'm like, man, what was I doing? Look at my notes. Yep.
I'd be totally crazy, but I would imagine that last session's a lot of combat, right? Like, it's not like we're going to get together and just have long-winded conversations about everything we did for 20 levels. Like, I imagine it's a climactic battle at the end, right?
Yeah, like they're building up to the big bad. So
nice.
It's definitely and it's been a couple years, so I'm like, I hope I have notes someplace for real.
The enemies will be easily defined and noticeable on the map when you get there. It won't take you long to figure it out.
Although at that point, though, in all fairness, they're not going to remember either.
Nope.
So,
It's like last time on the story.
We're
Let's just talk for a couple
enemies are
episodes.
there. Let's do this.
Man,
so
that's good.
what are you going to do?
So when you're not playing D&D, what other sorts of systems did you guys get into?
So we had done. We had pulled out the 4th edition Gamma World.
Mm-hmm.
So we had played that. We had played. We played Shadowrun using the Cipher System rule set.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else have we done? We've done. I'm totally blanking now. I had ran a 13 session game that was kind of like an Eldritch horror / steampunk fantasy mashup.
Nice.
Using Open Legend was the name of the game. And we like kind of let our patrons vote on like what genres do they want to see us do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like really close between like a bunch of them. So I was like, all right, we'll just like stick them all together. I don't know if you messed with Open Legend, but it's a generic system, so you can kind of run like anything in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of like getting back to the style of GURPS or something.
Yeah. I mean, Cipher System's that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
Although the Open Legend's is slightly crunchier than Cipher System.
Yeah, we really haven't got a lot of branching out under our belt, sadly. We have a group that likes certain things, and so we end up in that wheelhouse. Dustin and I are kind of the few that kind of branched out. It's like, actually, this last week we played some Shadowrun. We've got a lot of White Wolf games under our belt, so we used to run a Larp in a college town for a while. But for a lot of our time, it's been, Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder of some variety. And we don't get a lot
some
of
Marvel
stuff.
superheroes and some Aberrant. Like we tried a few other things too back in. But they were fewer and far between. Mostly D&D.
Yeah, we ran 2 seasons of Marvel Phase Rip on our channel.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, it always just cracked me up because it's like this game has been dead for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And people, if you want like a fun game that came out in the 80s, you can go download the whole system online for free. I mean, you can't actually buy it anywhere. And it's just a great system. It's just a lot of fun. The mechanics to that game are kind of innovative for the time when it came out. It's like one of the games where it's the first game I can think of where you used your experience to not only build your character but also to use it in the game.
Yeah, because you can spend it to augment your rolls.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that was for those of you guys who don't know, it's a D100 style game, and you had these charts that would sell, depending on how good you were at whatever you were trying to do, you had a different threshold of success and critical success and all that kind of stuff, and stuff could go pretty awry with you on those D100s.
it kind of looked like this like periodical table graph.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that looks super complex, but it was actually really simple.
Yeah,
it looked far more complex than it was, especially compared to most games that came out in that time period.
It was one of those things where you got a stat rating, and it was the descriptors from all the comic books. It was like you were incredible or amazing. So once you knew what your like rating was for that stat, then all you do is just follow the little chart up. It was basically just an XY chart. You just figured out what your score was. So it wasn't bad. It was easy to play, but it just very good D&D for sure.
Yeah, our DM ran it for a while for us. We actually had an entire Marvel superhero game run off of that for, I think, 2 years. It was a pretty good run.
Our group actually, before we started Nerdarchy, we were like in this flux. We had played 4th edition for a while, and then we kind of got, we got bored with it. And someone was playing Heroes Unlimited. They brought that up, and I hadn't played it before. We checked it out. We played a couple games, and I'm like, I really just don't like these mechanics. And like, I tend to not like the Palladium mechanics very much. It's very like that game system is just like stuck in the 80s and is not coming out of there. and we started playing. I'm like, there's got to be something better. I'm like, I remember playing Marvel Phase Rip, and I would much rather play that. And so I started poking around for superheroes games, and like 2 systems kept coming up: Champions and Mutants and Masterminds.
Yep.
And obviously, we played a lot of D20, so that just like was a good fit. And so we moved from playing 4th edition to playing Mutants and Masterminds. First, we started with a Supers game. Then we moved into a fantasy game. and because for second edition, like they had all the like splat books to make it into pretty much anything.
Right. Yeah.
And then and then we actually, before the Dresden Files game dropped for Fate, we were playing in the Dresden verse using mutants and masterminds to build the character.
Yeah, I guess it would really work. Yeah, I'm trying to think of I don't really know that system particularly well, but yeah, it's got some nice pieces there.
One of the guys who wrote it's going to be one of my players in my Zweihander games. You're going to get to meet him soon, Jeff. We've had him on the show before, but you'll get to meet him again. So
is that Alexander Wrights?
Alexander, yeah.
Nice. I didn't realize. I forgot he did that.
Yeah, Green Ronin puts out a lot of good stuff. Mm-hmm. I wish I just had more time to get into more of the different games. We will be premiering a game coming up June 9th. They're launching a Kickstarter for a game called Maximum Apocalypse. Ooh. And it's based off a board game.
Okay.
And one of the fans
right here to launch that.
yeah, right. One of the fans was like, "Oh, I love this board game. I wish it was an RPG," and they made it, pitched it to the company, and they're like, "Yeah, we actually like this." And one of our friends had did another game with that company called Set the Watch, which is basically a tabletop game based on D&D watches. It did really well. So he pointed them in our direction and said, "Hey, you want to check out this RPG?" So we played a couple games of it, and it's a lot of fun. So the premise is you have all these different apocalypses that you're living after.
Oh no!
And the way we did it is we each just kind of picked our own, and we had all these different apocalypses at the same time, and zombie apocalypse, big oil fail, kaiju attack, were I think the ones that were in the game that we played. But obviously you could play where it's just one of them. Mm-hmm. And that's actually a D100 under system.
Okay.
Seems like those are coming in vogue lately again. It's like you see patterns kind of in the industry. It seems like the D100 under is becoming more and more prevalent. I guess maybe it's just more understandable. You immediately know what your odds are just looking at it.
Yeah. So the way this system works, it's a little front loaded as far as making your character. Mm-hmm. It's I'm like, wow, this is pretty intimidating. But once you have the character, it's fairly simple, right? Because you already have all your numbers. You're rolling a D100, and you need to roll low. And then it's if you get under the stat, it's a success. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great success if you get half, and an amazing success if you get three quarters. So that part makes it kind of really easy. And then they use an advantage disadvantage mechanic, kind of like 5e, but you're just re-rolling the tens place.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a big difference.
Getting ready to run some Zweihander, and it's very similar in the way that it runs a lot of stuff like that. So you use the re-rolling the tens for helping. If someone assists you, you get to re-roll your 10. But it's a very similar system.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested in seeing how that plays out. We've obviously talked a lot about it. You've run a game on this channel here for a while, but I haven't actually played it. So there's a lot of interesting kind of sleek mechanics that they have kind of nestled in there.
That's an interesting way of doing it with the halves and thirds and stuff for the great successes also. Because that's even more categories than usual. Yeah,
it's a little more complex, but then once you have it down in front of you, it's kind of easy. Mm-hmm. And it feels kind of intuitive. And I mean, I usually don't really care for really crunchy systems, as much, but you asked the other games we played, the Star Wars. We've done quite a few of those as well.
Is that the newer one, the Fantasy Flight game? Or
Flight, yeah.
Yeah, so you learned how to read those dice then. See, I still haven't figured that part out.
Yeah, once you play it a few times, you start sorting them fast, right? And that's kind of, or if you just use an app, it just sorts it for you.
Yeah.
It's more work on the GM because they always have to come up with what is the weird stuff that happened because you've got this weird configuration of dice.
Right. Yeah. The dice are not necessarily results are not straightforward.
Yeah.
The dice are basically okay, you succeeded, but something bad happened. You're what the hell does that mean? Something bad happened
and something good happened. So
yeah, it's a very weird set of results you get in that.
Kind of like the kids on bikes kind of thing.
A little. But
I'm not familiar with the mechanics of that game.
It's not quite like that. It's more of a true, like, you roll like 2 or 3 dice and like 2 of them come up being like weird stuff happens and one says but you did it, and then the GM has to look at that and go, well, here's all the weird stuff and how you got out of it. Okay.
Yeah. So the narrative dice, the way they work is you have pass fail essentially, right? And then you have something good happened or something bad happened. And then everything kind of like washes out and you see what's left. So you might have, success, but something bad happened, or you could have extra benefits that happen as well. So it does slow the things down, and the GM of the game has to figure out what are these extra things that happen. So it kind of keeps you on your toes. But yeah, it's kind of fun too. Like the dice end up telling, they become a part of the game, telling a part of the story.
Yeah, I like that.
You got to be super improv mode as the GM. You got to be you got to have your A game out there to improv on those. It's
like you hit them, but your gun jams.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it just lends to a very cinematic vibe, I imagine. Because you think about going to the movies, like every time you watch something, there's always that weird thing that happens. It's always just kind of propels you to the next scene, gets you going. And you don't really get that a lot of times in your typical game experience. Either you pass or you fail, and that's, figured out from there. The swings are a little different.
So I will say, like, our group, where we struggle a little bit is, like, if we're going to play a fantasy game, it's probably going to be D&D. Right. So when other cool fantasy games come out, we totally miss the boat most of the time.
Yeah, we hear that too.
and I mean, a lot of your content, from what I've seen, is now heavily into 5e. So do you keep coming back to 5e now at this point, or is there a point where you're like, you know what, let's go back and do this one in 4 or 3?
Well, we're not going to move backwards in the editions, because I definitely think 5e is the best edition of D&D. Having played through them all. And I feel like I don't know how they did it, but they picked all the things that I like from all the editions and kind of put it into one. There's very few things that I feel like they kind of missed. Minions being one of the things from 4e, but that's so easy to fix as a GM. Oh yeah,
we loved Minions. That was a great mechanic.
Yeah. So now, you know what? Sometimes we will throw out other videos, and it's weird because whenever we talk about anything that's not D&D, you just know, like, just expect half the audience that you're normally going to get. Yeah, but we still play a lot of D&D, so it's not really a stretch for us to talk about D&D. I mean, we'd be doing it anyway, right? We just turn the cameras on now, and literally when we first started our channel, we'd be like, "What do you want to talk about?" Someone would say a thing, and we'd hit record. Now, there's a bit more of a process to it and a little bit more refinement than that. But these are just really the conversations that me and Ted would have been having anyway. Now we just record them. We're at 3,300 videos or something ridiculous.
Yeah. I got down a rabbit hole of looking at 5e builds the other day on your channel. I was like, Muscle Wizard. I was like, yes, tell me more about the Muscle Wizard.
Yep.
I was like,
it was weird. That did really well. You know what I've learned after doing 3,300 videos about basically mostly D&D on YouTube? I have no idea what people want.
Yeah. That's what I've learned. Thank you. Because I've been trying to dive into the data. I cannot figure it out to save my life. I mean, you've been at it though. We were talking earlier. You said you got started in 2014. Is that right?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
We so technically the channel launched in 2014, but 2013, towards the end of 2013, my brother was moving back from New Mexico to the Philadelphia area. And he's like, "Hey, I'm coming back. Let's do a thing. Maybe indie board games or something." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I like board games, but it wasn't really like I wouldn't call it my thing, right? I'm definitely a filthy casual."
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know, maybe, we'll do something. And then we started poking around, and I think one of the very first things we found was Noah Atwaller and Counter Monkey Spoonie, talking about D&D, and he had like 30,000 people, subscribe to his channel, and we were like, "Whoa, that's amazing!" And people really do want to hear about this stuff. And I think we discovered Andrew Armstrong, the Orange Forge Cast. He had like 20,000 subscribers. So it's like, oh, well, people do care about this stuff. But when we started, like, we're like, all right, maybe one day we can get 100,000, and like that seemed like the roof, right?
Yeah, like a miracle.
Then, yeah, right. And because at the time, the only thing, there was a lot of small channels that most of them like made their YouTube channels to talk to each other and do videos and riff off of each other. They weren't really designed to talk to an audience the way most of the YouTube channels are now. And no one was doing it well. Like, there was no production value anywhere. I mean, we were doing it a little bit different because we had more than one personality on talking at the same time. But I literally, we started with an iPhone and an external mic, and slowly got better. And then like a year later, WebDM came on the scene with like high production values, multiple angles. Their guy Travis, like, that's what he did for a living, was basically shoot YouTube videos. Yeah. So it's like, whoa. So we're kind of like blown away by some of the stuff they could do. And now you have a bunch of channels that have blown by 200,000 subscribers. And one of the channels that's like leading the pack, that's not Matt Colville. We don't count Matt Colville because he's like unto his own, right? He is AO of the DDs of Forgotten Realms, and so now like you have all these YouTube channels that have busted through not only 100,000 but 200,000, and the really weird thing is, Jeremy Pillowpal, Black Magic Craft, is like leading the charge. Like, he's ahead of all of them. And not only is he like a D&D channel, but he's like a D&D craft channel. Like, it's super niche. And he puts out really great stuff. But I was like blown away by where things have gone. And like we haven't even seen the ceiling yet. Yeah,
and that's the interesting thing, because you're saying that one's really niche. And like when you're putting out content for people, I'm of a couple different minds. On one hand, I'm like, I got to stand out, so you need something a little niche, a little different, so you could kind of break through. But then you do that, and you're really lowering the number of people that are going to look at your video. So you kind of get both ends of it.
Well, yeah, because like crafting, but specifically crafting for D&D is like a niche within a niche, so.
Right?
Yeah. I guess maybe I'm crazy, but I've always been in the mindset that even here at TT2KB and the stuff we're doing, like, we create content, but you're selling yourself. Your people get to know you, they get to know the people you have on your stream or on your channel, and they come back for you. Like, any video might be hit and miss, but at the end of the day, you're selling yourself is what you're doing. I mean,
this stuff is always personality driven. For sure. And like, the bigger personalities can talk about anything.
Right.
Like Runesmith's another really good channel who's really blew up. And like, he's like basically dogs or basically bears. Nothing to do with gaming, just some stupid thing he wanted to talk about. And like he'll still get like 100,000 views on it in like incredible. 2 weeks. Yeah.
Now we have a comment coming in from the chat here from Maddie Morgs, who was actually our guest last week. Maddie says, "You've done a great job of growing, presenting, and encouraging thought. Big inspiration." So he loves your work and wanted to chime in here in the chat and let you know that.
Well, thanks. I mean, and like for us, like that's always like the coolest thing. I think like my favorite comment is when someone is like, hey, like I've been out of gaming for like 10, 20 years. And then like I found your videos and came back to it like that. And like, hey, I just started gaming are definitely our two favorite.
Yes.
But I think the ones that come back is a little bit even more so because it's more like a kindred spirit to us.
Yeah, especially if they started in those old editions, so they can speak the language. Like, where's the Thaco? I don't understand. And you're like, Thaco's gone. It died. We buried it. We don't. I
can't get good armor. My armor class keeps going up. Why is that? I can't get into negatives.
Yeah, where's the negative numbers at? Come on.
Oh God, trying to explain that to new players, I forgot how that went. Oh. Yeah, it's an amazing thing, though.
It's the same armor class. There's someone finally figured out to flip it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think it was just like they did it one way and they're like, well, we can't do it the other way now.
It was like they didn't want to get over numbers bigger than 20. It was like the goal was to always stay with an integer that was less than 20 at any point in time. So they were like, we'll just have negative numbers. That way we can go to basically 40 in a range. Like, yeah,
long shot. Yeah, it's first edition initiative. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, there's some rules in the back in the day that have definitely been streamlined in a good way.
Yeah, Doug, he was talking about like reading through it, and it's like he's like there's this long list of procedures. He's like, I got to the second one and I just stopped. So
I think it's another thing we kind of forget as gamers. When we've been playing for like 20, 30 years in some cases, or even longer, we've got years of experience playing these style of games. We understand how like the general concepts work, and so when you hit a new system, you just look at it and go, oh, okay, that's how they're doing initiative. Yeah, that's an initiative thing. Okay, that's grappling. Okay, that's how grappling works. Maybe it's a little different here and there, but we have like the basic gist of it. We know there's a little acting involved. We know there's storytelling, but you get these new players, and like that book has to explain everything in detail, and it has to make sense. I think sometimes when we're writing, I don't write the stuff, but when somebody's writing this stuff, they have to keep that in mind. That's probably a very difficult thing to do as a gamer.
One of the things I'm kind of thinking back to is like, I remember, my first GM, we were probably playing for a couple of years before he even tried to begin coaxing us into role playing. Yeah. As a part of the game. We played, it was all theater of the mind, but we weren't, there wasn't really much role playing in our games at all.
Yeah, when you go to conventions, that seems to be the case, right? Like most games you get into, people are just playing X's and O's, dungeon crawling. Yeah. I always like for our group, we were always. I guess I shouldn't say we were always, but early on we became role players, and that's just kind of what we assumed the game was. Like that's what everyone does. But then you get out of your gaming group and you realize, nope, real quickly, that's not what happens.
Yeah. Our maps was like some pop cans on a kitchen table with some different dice that rolled bad, so they became our characters, so we didn't have to roll them, and we moved them around on the table. So like, it's really hard to play the X's and O's version of the game when you don't have the maps and stuff to play the X's and O's version.
So in the earliest parts of the game, we were playing first and second edition, my GM would just like scribble on a piece of paper, right? And we'd do it that way if things were complicated. And it would be like the X's and O's, But with third edition, they introduced, using miniatures and tactical combat. And we weren't like completely sold on it. But one of the things that would happen all the time, inevitably, the ogre would attack the wizard, and we're like, well, he's in the back. How's he getting to him, right? So we went out and we got a board and put a grid on it, and we would, just put things out for complex, and we used the D6s were the bad guys, D4s were the good guys, just to give us kind of a basic idea. At that point I had owned my own house, and like we had like one Halloween, we bought a bunch of candy and no one showed up. So we had all these Kit Kats and the Kit Kat miniatures, and they became our building blocks for our dungeons.
Nice.
And we would use those alongside our D4s and our D6s. And every once in a while, we did initiate a new player, and they would show up, and they'd be like, "Oh, Kit Kats, I love those. Can I have one?" We're like, "Help yourself." But they'd been there for like 4 years. Everyone would just wait for him to open it and like take a bite out of it, and we're just like all watching their faces. Yes, we were assholes back then.
Ted, stop eating the dungeon. We haven't gotten to that room yet.
But even to today, right? We'll use, we'll put down the grid when we play, and the internet loves this because we'll share pictures from it on social media, and it's a bunch of mechanical pencils that are laid out to make the dungeon or the room or whatever, and people are like, it's a dry erase board, for the love of God, why don't you just draw it? And we're like, it's a pain in the ass to erase it, and it smudges. We do use minis now, and Ted has been getting a lot more into crafting, so he's been throwing together some really cool builds, or at least it was before the apocalypse. We're trying to convince him to set up another camera, and he can just like jockey everything around.
Oh, that'd be cool. I mean, but it's a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff obviously goes on in the back end. as we learned in the prep for today.
Yeah, Maddie chiming back in there with the higher level stuff there, man. Those apparently Starburst, the squares fit perfectly in the grid on a map. So there you go. A little pro tip there from Maddie.
I think it was Doug that told me that they did that as well, but he would make the more important villains the least favored flavors. So psychologically, the players were less inclined to attack them first, because the idea was once you killed the enemy, you got to eat them.
Oh.
So if you brought an entire package of like Laffy Taffy and you're playing like a bard, could you just open it up for the one-liners?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think people forget, when they see a lot of these professional games being played, online, that this is a hobby of just random people. Like, you make do with what you got. A lot of it's in your mind, a lot of it's pop cans and Starbursts and whatnot. You don't need to have all the best toys in the game. Obviously, you want the best games and that stuff. It's awesome, but that's not how we started.
Yeah.
It's usually a bunch of teenagers sitting around going like, "Hey, does anyone have a book?"
And in case you want to know how the hobby got started, it clearly involved snacks, cans of pop, and usually a pizza box somewhere. That was your map, and you couldn't really play till after you spent a certain amount of time talking about it, drinking, and eating some snacks.
Yeah, putting on pounds.
Very, very important.
Oh, yeah. And of course, we always had a tradition that your character was not official until you had a stain on it. So it was always like a pizza grease stain, or a soda would fall on it somewhere. That's when your character was real. Up until that point, it was just still in the formative process.
I forgot about that. It's true.
I don't know if you ever had any weird gamer superstitions. It seems like it just creeps in.
We definitely have some stories. There's definitely things that have happened over the years. I don't know about superstitions, but I've seen a player take a maul and smash a die because it kept rolling badly. We were playing one time and had a player stand up, say something, and then we're like, "Oh my god, what just happened?" Because we didn't know that he had a top plate until it landed in the center of the table.
Oh, wow!
Brawls have broken out over the years.
Really? No kidding.
There's been, threats of violence. But, so
our taking it seriously.
This escalated quickly.
Yeah. Our group started when I was I want to say, 21 to 22. And to, some of those players we still play with. I'll be 45 this year. So me and Ted play together. Our buddy Mark has been at our table as well. My brother Ryan. My brother Jeremy has been in and out of the game. So, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about this game is these lifelong friendships you kind of make. Ted is my brother-in-law. I married his sister.
Oh, interesting.
But it's through gaming that we've kind of bonded and really become friends.
Yeah, definitely.
My friend Mark, who was, my son was probably he was a toddler at the time, probably 3, when he started going to the church that my wife and her family attended. And he was whenever there was a Saturday event, I wouldn't be there because that was game night. And it was sacrilegious to miss game night. You had some serious ball busting coming your way if you weren't there. And he was like, "Why? How come your husband is never at any of this stuff?" And my wife was like, "Well, he games Saturday nights." And he's like, "Oh, really?" And now that guy is my daughter's godfather. And my daughter is going to be 16 this year.
Man, that's incredible.
So that's the beauty of this hobby. You just really we bond.
Well, it's one of those things we've talked about in the past is that this game is kind of it's a unique kind of platform because it puts people together in a collaborative way where you're overcoming challenges and you're dealing with things that feel like a lived experience, something dangerous. You think of people that go through a disaster or something together, they end up a little tighter together, or people go off to war together, they end up tighter together. It just seems to be a thing that comes together here, Well,
I know for me, I grew up, before I started doing a lot of tabletop role-playing games, I was rather athletic. I played a lot of basketball, played football, soccer. But, at the age of 40, like, I can't do a lot of those things like I used to. So, like, but I can still game. I can still hang out with my gaming friends. But, like, none of my friends that used to play football with are getting together to play football on Saturday. It ain't happening. Like, so.
We just can't game as late as we used to.
That's right. When you start and when you finish, it changes a little, or how much time you got to sleep the next day.
Yeah, but, definitely. Absolutely. Man, just getting older, it's just like random stuff happens. Like today, completely unrelated to anything we're talking about, but I'm going to go ahead and out myself on this one. I reached back like this to grab something on the floor, and apparently this like 2-pound object behind me on the floor was enough to flip my chair over. Took my headset with me, my boom mic came, the monitor flipped over, I was laying in this corner back here, just like legs dangling up in the sky, so I'm like, oh man, it's dying.
You didn't account for the COVID-19 that you put on right during the quarantine. You didn't account for it.
I guess not. These are the things I never think about when I'm running game. Like, what are the critical complications of a botch? Well, there it was. Botch picking up like a piece of paper. It's just craziness how that goes down. But yeah, I do think there is something special about gaming. It's like for us as a gaming group, we were very different people. Like coming from different kind of tables at the lunchroom, so to speak. And I don't even remember how we got together in the first place, but gaming has been the glue that's kept us together for 25 years plus.
Well, we didn't all come together at one time is the answer, but short story.
There's that. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing. And kind of that that experience of finding out somebody's a gamer. It's always kind of like you're doing your normie thing. You're like, oh yeah, I also like mowing the lawn, and then wait, did you just say D4? Like
Jeff was one of the rare people who didn't have to hide it from his parents. Did you have to hide it early on?
No, I mean, I guess I was sort of lucky. I mean, chalking up to childhood trauma, but my parents weren't very good parents, so they didn't really care what I did.
I see. Yeah.
Well, there's always that too.
So it didn't really matter. Like they were vaguely aware.
Mm-hmm.
At best, I could just remember my dad calling me a nerd or whatever. For doing that stuff. But yeah, so actually, I was talking about this earlier today, but we definitely didn't advertise. Like you had gamer speak that we'd use that, so the straights wouldn't really know what you're talking about.
Yep.
But other gamers would, and so we had like a group of friends that would game, but we were also like from the metalhead clique and listen to heavy metal music, and some of my friends were musicians. So we would call gaming rocking out. Yeah, that's what we're doing Saturday night.
Nice.
So the people. So we didn't talk about it. Like it's like Fight Club. The first rule of gaming is you don't talk about gaming.
Right?
Yeah,
that's how.
But so then later, I was an adult and I was working in the construction industry, and I would even then it was I felt like there was still a stigma, and I didn't feel comfortable talking about it. I would rather think those people thought I spent the weekends snorting coke off of a hooker's ass than rolling shaped dice, like anything but.
It's pretty crazy how that works, but yeah, that seemed like that was true for me even until like the mid 2000s, maybe.
I think Larp changed that for us a lot.
Well, even then, even when we went to the diner afterwards, I'm like, I don't want to be in my costume. Let's wrap this up.
I suppose that's true, but I know all those post Larp going out to the diner and eating and just talking about game. I know that's where it really got me to where I could start talking about it amongst people or in public.
Good old gamer shame.
Gamer shame.
I mean, I didn't even play in a game store until decades after I'd already been gaming.
I don't think we even saw a game store.
Just because it wasn't a thing, growing up.
Right.
So by the time it became a thing, I didn't need a group. We always had, at least 4 or 5 of us that would play. So we weren't like, oh, how do we find a way to play?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until after we started Nerdarchy really that we started checking out different scenes and doing different things. I remember it might have been just before. No, it wasn't before Nerdarchy. It wasn't just before Nerdarchy. It was way before because my youngest brother was still in college, and we were gaming at his place. And then his roommates came home with a bunch of friends, And I just remember just like completely shutting down and like, this is just weird to be around muggles and gaming and also I'm much, I'm 8 years older than my brother, so I'm much older.
You got an image to maintain.
Yeah, right. And you know what it really changed for me is after doing Nerdarchy, and I was doing Nerdarchy, and I was also working heavy construction. Mm-hmm. And I just remember at a certain point, once you can go like, oh, I do this stupid weird thing, and then you're like, oh, and I also make money doing it. Yeah. Then like people's perception completely changes. Yeah. Like, oh, that is really nerdy, but like, wait a minute, you like doing the thing, and people pay you. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. Wait a minute. So yeah.
I still to this day, like amongst coworkers and stuff, I only kind of just casually mention it as nerd stuff or game stuff. Like I don't get in any detail, even to this day, still.
Now it'll fly. Like you got Stranger Things, you got all these, all this stuff that's really, brought D&D out.
Yeah, I think it depends on the culture of your area, though. Like where we grew up is still very backwoods, rural Illinois.
The not Chicago part.
Yeah. I get that too. Like depending where you are in the world, they're still like they're stuck in the '80s in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
If we could just get to the 80s, that'd be great. I'm not even sure we're there.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
I remember reading somewhere where someone was like talking like to kids and like kids talking about not being cool enough to be one of the D&D kids.
It's finally happened.
I know, it's like are we in now Bizarro world? What's going on?
It sounds like it.
I think you really got to kind of attribute a lot of that to the theater kids. Like they opened the door for all that because you figure a certain amount of them just became, went on to become actors and celebrities. So that really does kind of elevate it.
Yeah, there's been some big figures out there that have, come out of the closet of gaming, so to speak. Like I'm thinking of like the Colbert, episode where that comes out.
Joe Manganiello and which I'm probably totally butchering his name.
I can never say it correctly. I have no idea how it's said. You could say it to me directly in my face, I wouldn't get it right. But I mean, it's interesting to see the celebrity component of that coming on. Because I think it helps a lot. It really is kind of busted down that door. And I think we've talked about it a little bit too. Dustin and I oftentimes refer to when World of Warcraft became more popular in the mainstream. I think that also kind of played a role of kind of smoothing the edges a little bit.
Well, and we have an entire generation that grew up with Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a core part of their childhood and their growing up. Like, that's huge. Like,
well, also too, even just like getting The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings as movies, when you get that stuff into a medium that's readily available and easily digestible for people, where they don't have to read comic books, they don't have to read novels, like they just sit in front of a screen and it gets fed to them. It definitely, I attribute a lot of it to that as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the movies that were coming around at that time because we had a lot of superhero movies starting to come out that wasn't the norm besides like Batman, right? And that was still kind of normal-ish, but then we started getting the Marvel stuff coming out around that time. We had the Matrix movie coming out, they're kind of like, oh, this is different, whoa, And I think a lot of these things all hit around that early 2000s to mid 2000s. And to me, that feels like when it started to kind of turn that corner a little bit. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Yeah, well, think about it, right? 2000s, mid 2000s. Now you're looking at kids that were playing in the 80s and the 90s are now adults, right? And like this is a game, this is a hobby that you don't necessarily have to age out of. Right. As Dustin mentioned, like there's certain things you just can't do anymore. Your body's like, I don't think so.
And every once in a while I get stupid and I try it and I remind myself I can't do that.
Yeah, I'm not too far off of 40. It's catching up on me quick. I think back to the dumb stuff we did as kids, man. Oh my god, it's like jumping off roofs onto trampolines into pools and stuff, and climbing grain silos,
shooting bottle rockets at each other.
Yeah. Tons of that stupid stuff, and like it's a miracle we're alive.
I mean, it's running around in the 80s, like when I say anything of like this stuff we did when we were kids to my kids, they just look at me like I've got brain damage, and they're probably more correct than not.
Right.
So,
well, like I think about that all the time. I'm not a parent, but like I can't imagine just being like, hey kids, go ahead and just walk around town whenever you want, and go play wherever. I'll see you tomorrow. Like, but that's what we did. Every day was no big deal.
My kids hardly ever even leave the house. And when we were kids, we had like quarries that we would go ride our bikes and you get chased by the guy in the loader.
Yeah.
Right. I joke all the time. I have 3 kids, and I joke all the time that when I was 15, I'd get grounded to my room. But I have a 15-year-old that I have to ground out of his room.
You gotta like collect all their devices and
it's like I have to kick him out. It's like, all right, because you're in trouble, you're gonna go outside today. There you go.
Yeah, that's it. Suck some nature, buddy.
What do I do now? No. The sun. That starts to happen to me now. I spend a lot of time in my room here. I think I might combust the next time I go outside.
So we're trying to like get outside and get some exercise now. So like we just do laps in our yard.
Yeah, we need to start doing something like that. Like we got the folks at Exercise Bike upstairs. They're riding it, and then I have this. The only weight I have in here is just like freeform stuff, like a milk jug or something, or like this one weight that's like 2 pounds. I'm like, all right, what am I gonna do with this thing? So like I've just been lifting D&D books. The Exalted book, that one's a good one. It gives a little heft.
Yeah, there you go.
But man, I miss it.
I always go out and get my 3.2 miles in every day. I did it twice today. Actually, I did 6.4 miles today.
Do you really?
So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I do every day.
I didn't realize that. Well, yep. I will chalk up to being the least mobile person in this room.
I spend a lot of that time thinking about what I'm going to do for my games. So that's my GM prep time is usually on my walk. I'm just running through what I'm going to do in my head. But
yeah, that's a good spot for it. It's always those little things like, in the shower, walking around somewhere, driving. Anytime your mind is just like somewhere else. For me, it used to be whenever I was working in a massage, if you had an easy massage to do, like one of the, the classic, just, easy ones, you just zone out for an hour and a half and just be like, all right, what am I going to do tomorrow in my game? Okay.
You could tell who lived in Chicago where driving was sitting in bumper to bumper traffic, so he had time to think about game. The rest of us have to watch the road.
Commutes were good for that. I mean, when I was in heavy construction, like I would drive an hour to the yard, grab the truck, and then is it 45 minutes, an hour away, 2 hours away? And then the job itself was like a lot of hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
So plenty of time to think about that stuff.
Yep. That's how my job is too. I work in a lab. Everything's stat, but it takes me 5 minutes to get it all running and 45 minutes for it to run. So then it's like, okay, well, that'll be done in a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Netflix is your friend and audiobooks.
Yeah, when they don't lock them out of them, I guess. So, kind of dialing it back to your channel a little bit. I'm really curious about it. Just kind of how the beginning looked for you. Like, what was it that kind of got you over that hump of kind of getting through the intro of starting a channel and making content and finding your audience and all that?
So, I mean, some of it is just dumb luck, right? Just being in the right place at the right time. When we started, like I said, there was talking heads and like one person, it was a switch up when people came to our channel. There was 2 to 4 people talking and screaming over top of each other. Like some of the stuff when I listened to the early stuff, I was like, this is awful. How did anyone ever listen to this? Because we would just cut each other off ruthlessly. I mean, we're all from New Jersey, so Soprano State. So so we had that kind of going for us. But not only that, like we started and it was like really generic, and we're like, we'll figure out what we want to talk about and what we want to do. As we go, and we'll see how people respond, right? So in the beginning of July, 5e dropped the basic rules, 2014. We didn't even know they were coming out in another edition. We had just been like talking about generic stuff and playing other games. And, you know, so it was like, oh, there's this thing, guys. Do we want to check it out? Mm-hmm. And we started shooting videos on 5e. And apparently, you know, people really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And you know, that was it. That's like how our channel kind of really took off. Like when I average out like our subscribers, we generally gain, you know, 1,000 to 2,000 subscribers per month, like, wow. You know, without fail over the whole course. But that's nothing. If you look at some of these other channels that have come up after us, mm-hmm. like they gain thousands and thousands every month.
Yeah, but the question is how many people are returning on that, right? I mean, yeah, there's an explosive growth, but how many of those subscribers are watching their videos on the consistent
there's
basis?
A lot. I mean,
okay, well, never mind.
Like if you look at XP to level 3, Taken 20, Runesmith, Black Magic Craft, it's fascinating to me to see them come up and do their thing. Yeah. The 3 that fascinate me the most right now are Davy Chappie, Runesmith, and XP to level 3, because they really are like the next generation.
Yeah, what are they doing? And that's really kind of stepping apart.
It's different, like depending on which one you're talking about. They all have their styles and they're really good. But I think like things that I had to learn as a YouTuber, like they intuitively just know because they like grew up with the platform.
Yeah.
Where we came to the platform as strangers, and sometimes we still feel like strangers. Yeah, so for us, we just kept, you know, as the channel grow, we would just, you know, increase our production values, get a little better, learn to do things a little bit more, you know, better. One of the things that we do now is we outsource a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That we used to do in house, like video editing. Like, no one particularly enjoys it or is particularly great at it. So it's so nice for us to be able to go and hand that off to somebody else to do.
Oh man, that'd be great.
You know, thumbnails. We have someone that does a great job on the thumbnails, and then, you know, we hire them to do that kind of stuff. So that's the other thing, is like figuring out where you want to spend your time and resources, you know, while you're doing it. You know, coming into this, we always knew our objective was to build an audience and then figure out what they wanted us to sell them.
Right.
And so, which the culmination of that was our Kickstarter last year, mm-hmm. which did $250,000 out of the box encounters.
Nice.
Which is 55 drop-in encounters that you can kind of just whatever, you know, you don't have content for tonight, or the players did something unexpected. They went to an area you didn't think they would go to. It's like you can just grab one of these, throw it in your campaign.
Nice.
You know, and it's probably towards the end of this year we'll drop another Kickstarter once we deliver on this one, which should be out in July. Like July, we're slated to deliver, and you know, the Corona gods willing, it looks like we're still on track to deliver them. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we're selling the PDF now. We have the pre-order that people can get. I don't know if you've seen the Arknight flat plastic minis that they put out.
No, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, so there's been a couple that have come after them that have been really cool, like the skinny minis and stuff. But mm-hmm. I think Arknight was the first one to do it, where they were the clear plastic. They had a front and a back, pawns basically.
Oh, okay.
And so we partnered up with them. So for out of the box encounters, you can get the minis that go with it, as well as the maps and the assets and stuff.
Nice.
So you can literally put everything down on your table. Any day now, we should have Fantasy Grounds. We'll have the integration for that going on. We have D&D Beyond integration that's going to be happening as well. Oh, wow. So the people that backed it, they'll be able to go on D&D Beyond and access all their stuff over there as well.
Oh, we got a question coming in from chat here. Maddie Morgs again chiming in, says, is this something that your friendly local game shop can get from a distributor?
So during the Kickstarter, we did eventually add some retail levels. And then so we're still figuring out what the distribution's going to look like after we finally get the books. We really haven't thought that far ahead. And that would be nice. And that is something we want to do. Right now, we've got a laundry list of things we're working our way through. And that tends to be more on the back end. So we don't have a distributor that we're working with yet.
Right on. Yeah, Matty Morgs, if you aren't aware of him, he runs a game store and also does a streaming channel for said store. It is awesome content over there. We had him on last week. So, yeah, I can see where he's angling here.
Yeah. So right now we're partnered with Arknight, and they're going to be doing the distribution initially for us. And then afterwards, like, we may still work with them. So I know they're getting their stuff in the game stores, so it's definitely a possibility for sure.
He's wondering if it's too late to get him some copies to put on his shelf. Do you know if he can still get it?
You know what? If you reach out to us, we can probably figure something out.
These guys are in our Discord, Maddie. I think you're in our Discord after the show or something. Hit him up. Maybe he can help through Discord or whatever. Hook you up with
Nerdarchy@gmail.com is really easy.
Perfect. Yeah, see, that's what we're about right here. We like to make connections, you know, make the networking happen. That's always nice. Yeah, so like I always kind of look at this YouTube stuff too. Like what I notice with a lot of channels is there's a lot of work that goes in for a long period of time, figuring out what's going on, how to make video content, how to improve your production value. But then there always seems to be that one point where it's suddenly there's an inflection point. There's like the one video that just takes off for who knows why. It just does. Did you guys have one of those experiences, or was it kind of one of those steady grind, kind of just get you there?
I mean, you know, any channel that's been around for a while and has any degree of success is going to kind of have videos like that to different degrees, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, like, we have one, like, our biggest video is about to hit, may have already hit 600,000, right? But next to some other channels, that's like nothing, right? You know, so it all depends. They actually called them tet post videos, where like that's kind of like the objective of that video on YouTube is to bring in a lot of new subscribers, new blood kind of to your channel.
Yeah. So it's the algorithm is selecting them as that and then designating it that way, or are you doing something
special? I wouldn't call it the algorithm. Like, so what happens a lot of times with those is for whatever reason they catch and you get what's called view velocity, and that's what the algorithm likes. If the algorithm sees people are watching it, commenting on it, you know, sharing it, then it's going to put it in front of more people, right? So it's all about watch time for YouTube.
Yeah,
if people put it out, a lot of people watch it, then YouTube will keep sharing, showing it to more and more people.
So are you suggesting that people have figured out kind of what they need to do for their channel to make one of those videos that maybe isn't the regular content, but a special video they can put out that's going to get that mileage?
You can do that, or you'll see other channels where they put out like a lot. They do like kind of like a lot of negging, or more controversial topics, because that's will just get
clickbait.
Yeah, but I mean it's not always clickbait, but yeah, I mean kind of.
Yeah, but they're leaning into it. I mean, even if it's true content and it's not bad content, like how you title your video, go a long way.
You just kind of know if you put that one end of the S words in there, worst, best, ultimate, like that kind of stuff tends to do better.
Yeah, it's too bad.
People really like it when you like neg on stuff, right?
They do.
Yeah. And then because they don't want to go there to agree with you or fight with you over why you're wrong. So
but
like that kind of
builds it. Yeah, like I had one video on my Let's Play series that like I'd done like, I don't know, 200 videos or something, and they did okay. I mean, just mild views here and there. But then I made this one video was just, I want to talk about this mod I found for this game. And it's because I got annoyed by this one character's build, and I wanted to rebuild it. I'm like, all right, cool, I found this. You can respec your character. Awesome. So I found it, I'm like, here's how you install it. Cool. But I decided to put in the, I don't know why I did this, but in the thumbnail, I just put in, this character saying, I suck. Like, it was a little word balloon. And that's the video of all videos I've created that got up to like 60,000 views for no apparent reason overnight. And that's what everyone sees as my content. I'm like, great.
And some people lean into that. And then sometimes there's just channels where the creator is just super personable, and charismatic, and it doesn't matter what they talk about. Or like look at Matt Colville, like he's super cerebral, super intelligent, and people just love to listen to him talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ted for a while I didn't like him, like watching his videos as much. He's like he never blinks, and it freaks me out. And he talks really fast.
Yeah, the speed talking, that's the one. Because I'm assuming you guys are East Coast, so that's probably normal over there, right? A little faster.
We
a
are
little less
we are
space.
East Coast.
Yeah, so like Midwest, further west you go, the fast talk kind of gets you. By the time you get to California, it's
We also can't hide our hick draw on half of our words that we have around here. So
yeah, you don't realize it's so bad until you start editing your own content.
yeah, playing an online game.
You're doing that. There is no quicker way to fill yourself with self-loathing than to edit yourself over and over again.
Yeah.
You find that one tick that you have, like your ums or whatever. I can actually look at video content, just the audio file, and I can see the word in the WAV file.
Yes. Yeah. You can do that, like, because I've edited it with multiple speakers, and you can see, like, who's talking based on the WAV file.
It's ridiculous.
I know it's like I'm playing an online gaming guild, and I didn't realize how much I had a Southern drawl until this other guy who had a Southern drawl joined the guild, and somebody said they couldn't tell their voices apart, and I was like, oh shit, that's what I sound like? I was like, I had no idea. They're like, yeah, you guys sound just alike. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I sounded just like that. That's he's from Texas. I'm not even close to there. Like, how is that possible?
That's why we started doing character voices, right?
Yeah.
It's us practicing normal speech.
How to not talk like this.
Whatever it takes.
Now, do you do a lot of voice work in your guys' games?
No.
No.
We're definitely not voice actors. And I am just terrible with sticking with a voice to begin with. So unless it's got to be the only time I can really do a voice and stick with it is if maybe if I'm playing like an Aarakocra or where you're really leaning into something like kind of bestial or a lizard folk.
Yeah, something real out there.
Yeah.
I would say my voice work for the characters where I feel like it'll make a difference. Like sometimes characters, the voice doesn't make a difference. Sometimes it does. I always try to save it.
And I'm just
go ahead.
I was just saying, I'm just terrible at accents. So I know a lot of people. That's basically how they do their voices. Is they pick some kind of accent and go with that. And I am just terrible at that.
Yeah, we've been lucky with our group. Like our DM Levi, our primary DM anyway, I should say, he is blessed in that. I don't know how it is, but he could just make any voice. It seems like
he's just a natural actor, but he doesn't do it so much by regional accent. He thinks of like a person, so he'll do Alan Rickman. He'll do, he'll pick a person and shoot for that particular voice.
These chat comments have got me laughing all night. I'm trying to snipe in there, just randomly, messaging that I see them, but that one actually got me to laugh out loud.
It's true. All my NPCs have a New Jersey accent.
I'm not even sure if I can pull that one off. But there's always that one voice people can't do.
My Shadowrun character was fantastic. That's true. But it was a one shot, so I only had to be good for one night.
Yeah, he was playing this brand new Shadowrunner who was an overweight elf that hovered around in a chair. He was a trust fund kid that didn't know what he was doing.
World's best Shadowrunner.
It sounded super nasally.
Nice.
Shows up to the first run. He's asking all these crazy questions. We're like, oh my god, it's gonna get us killed.
We're so going to die.
Oh, it was good stuff though. Yeah. So we were talking earlier about level progression in games, and this is something we've talked about a little bit in the past. But there are definitely tiers of level progression. Is there one that you really dig more than others?
So we run a monthly fan game. And I usually pick 5 to 7, right, for those one shots. Just because I feel like that's the level where you're kind of starting to do some cool things. You've been along the path for a little while. You're getting your extra attack. You're casting Fireball, or a little bit better. The Paladin at 7th level, the Paladins got their auras. So it's kind of cool. But then once you start getting past those levels, things start getting a lot harder and more unwieldy for the GM.
Can be, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because there are certain tiers. I think for one shot, that's exactly the right way to go, because getting a new character sheet in a higher level tier is just well, what the hell have I gotten myself into here? Just hopping in a cockpit,
I I ran Orcus Claws for my group, and they were like 17 or 18th level, and it's a Frog God Games module for like 3rd level characters. So yeah, so on the fly, I just like adjusted everything.
Nice.
And it worked out okay. But literally, a huge chunk of the adventure was like, yeah, I'm just gonna wish us from the town to over on the top of the mountain there. So, you know, all the stuff like getting to the mountain was like totally done, you know.
One dimension door, and we're there.
And we're there. We're at the front door, but which is fine because it made it go over one session. But you know, and that's the kind of stuff that can happen at higher levels. You know, the last session that we ran of that game, where they're 20th level, like they had an encounter. They totally kind of botched it, and then after the fact, my brother's like, "Hey, can I cast Wish and do a time rewind to redo that encounter?"
Wow.
You know, so he wanted to let me know that he wanted to try that at the beginning of the next session.
God, these things should just
I'll probably allow it. I'll be like, all right,
happen.
we got to roll your 30% to see if you lose Wish forever. But like, they're never going to play those characters again, so it won't, you know, even if he botches
no
it.
drawback. Yeah.
The best change they ever made to D&D was when they said, "Wish just mimics some other spell."
Yeah,
you don't have to worry about it because there's no.
Yeah, get away from all the constant fighting with your DM where they're trying to like letter of the law, whatever you said. Oh, you want some higher strength? Yeah. Oh, all your strength moves to your head. You know. Yeah. We've had some real winners in our games.
Good old days.
Yeah. But, you know, it's interesting. Like, long-term games, I'm wondering if... Does that still hold true for you? You still prefer that 5 to 7 range? Or is there a different...
Yeah, I think that's... I honestly think that's kind of the sweet spot. You know, if you want to stretch your legs and go higher something for a game or two. But, you know, once you get into those 8th and 9th level spells, you know, the things that the players can do, and, you know, the number of variables as a DM you have to consider becomes insane.
Yeah, it changes the types of stories you can tell for sure. You know, like you can't have a you know, outdoor adventure where you're trying to climb a mountain whenever you got magic that you can just cast fly. You know, it's over. But
now, if you played the characters all the way up, you've slowly learned what a lot of them can do over time. So there's not nearly as many surprises. But just hopping in at those levels, yeah, you can be in for a wild ride as a GM.
Now, I will say 5e, it's not nearly as bad as other versions of the game. And also, it was funny, it was actually during the Orcus Claws game. I think, like, I had ran something, and I had mind-controlled, like, the fighter, and he's, like, the heavy in that game. And he just totally decimated the party. And then I ran the Orcus Claws, and like one of the Orcus Claws special abilities is kind of the same thing. And again, he's just like decimated the party. He's like, so do I have to play this like I'm really trying to kill them, or? And kind of like him, and I'm like, man, it's your character. You do what you want to do. So he leaned into it, and like as a fighter, multi-class with like he just pulled out all the stops and action surged. And
yeah. Fighters are so mean in 5th edition. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like 5th edition did kind of go back though. I think towards God mode wizards, right? Like I'm playing a wizard right now in our campaign, and up until about now, when we hit, you know, level 9, I was like, wizards are pretty good, but they're not super broken. Hit level 9, I was like, nope, these guys are way outclassing everybody else. You know,
I can do stuff now.
Yeah, and that's always been an issue I've had with Dungeons and Dragons. You know, it's just the power curve is not the same for every class. You know, like
it's gotten better. Yeah, the fighter's damage output is pretty crazy in the barbarian. You know? But yeah, you know, wizards are still wizards. When you start getting up there, Steel Wind Strike is so good, especially like my character. The first character I played was an Eldritch Knight Wizard. War Wizard, and you know, being able to action surge and Steel Wind Strike, you know, twice in the same round when you have a lot of targets is so good. And you're rolling a lot of d20, so you're going to crit at some point. So you know, 6 die 10 becomes 12 die 10 real fast.
Yeah, that'll do the trick.
Yeah, it's definitely there's definitely things like that. Like 5e, I think sometimes amongst older gamers gets maybe sometimes a bad rap that it seems like it's a little more mechanics light, or that there's a little less build to the characters because you're not getting the same prestige classes like you had in 3.5 and things like that. But it's still, if you do things just right, like you can really crank out some interesting builds.
There's a few.
Yeah. Also, too, you hear that it's impossible to kill characters. It's too easy. I will say we were playing on Esper the Bard's channel the other night, and we had a half TPK for level characters, and also too, like when the characters would go down, his NPCs just took you out.
They're just straight ruthless, huh?
Yeah, like we had one player that got paralyzed like pretty early in the game, and we were like lugging him around like luggage. And then, everything started going down. So we kind of like put him in a cubby someplace, and guards came across him and they just ganked him.
Oh,
my character went down. Although it did have a cool moment because he went down. I actually critted the death save, got back up, and just kept going for another like 3, 4, maybe even 5 rounds. But eventually got put back down again, and then they just like took him out.
Yeah, our experience with 5th Ed, like the first like 2 levels, it was just like every fight we were just dead, just like DM was just mopping the floor with us. And I think it's because we did it to ourselves. We were old Pathfinder players. We had done horrible things to our DM in the past, and his encounters were just revved up a little bit high. But
yeah,
still feels like those low level 5th edition characters are squishy. But now I feel like generally we're gonna make it. We're gonna do okay.
I'd say that the early levels, I think it's the way the death and dying mechanics work that's kind of give you the sense that it's hard to kill a 5e character, because you don't go to way negative con or anything like that anymore. So you just hit 0, and then it's the possibility of up to 6 rounds for someone to come by and drop even 1 point of healing on you. Yeah. And then run about your day. So I don't know. That part of the mechanics kind of makes it feel a little like you got a lot of time to really pull somebody's butt out of the fire, I guess.
So what I do in my games, if the foes are intelligent and the cleric keeps popping people back up, they then focus on the cleric and they hit him at least once while he's down.
Yeah.
Because to me that just makes sense.
Yeah. I'm liking Pathfinder 2's
economy to do so. Like that puts a little more pressure on the players for sure when you start hitting them while they're down.
Yeah, we're playing Pathfinder 2 now as well, and they have an interesting take on death mechanics. I don't know if you've kind of looked into it too much, but rather than the yo-yo up and downs, we got this nice thing where each time you get dropped and brought back up, you have a wounded condition stack up. And so each time you go down, you're 1 step closer automatically to death. So like basically by the 4th time you get dropped, you're dead. Like just flat out, no chance. So it's pretty cool. It's scary when somebody goes down in that system, We
got a question from Vatek says, at TT2KB, do you think that 5e is mechanics light or more open RP because of how advanced available video games are? No, they have to offer something video games can't, because video games are incredibly mechanic heavy inherently. I wouldn't call 5e light. If I used that word a little bit ago, it's lighter than previous versions of D&D, but I wouldn't call it light. There's still definitely systems out there way more light than 5e.
There are lighter, but it is definitely light.
Yeah, so 5e is more in, like even the designers say this all the time, it's more about rulings than rules. Right? And they intentionally leave a lot of things open for the DM to educate how they want to do it at their table, which is a big part of the game. So in that way, it's a lot like 1st edition and 2nd edition, where that was actually a design flaw that in 5e they made it a feature instead of a bug. Going, you know what? And really, it was something that I didn't realize I missed. After playing 3rd edition for so long, going to 5e, I was like, you know what? I started like realizing the things I missed from the previous editions.
Interesting.
That weren't in the game, because 3rd edition was so rules heavy. Like whatever it was, there was a rule for it. You could big it up. Which also slowed down play, and then it made it easier for the players to fight with you over the rules, because on page 66 of the DMG it says right here clearly, in 5e, that's just a lot more open-ended.
Yeah.
I mean, with 3.5, like, you had to go through and list which books people couldn't use. Like, this book is out, this book is in, you can't use that one. Like, it was in my opinion, that was like kind of a nightmare.
Yeah,
there was a lot of books.
Yeah, there's a lot of different takes on this, though. Like, I think I'm one of the few who doesn't like that ruling mentality personally. I'm in the other camp, sadly, but like, for me, Fifth Ed doesn't hit my itches, but I understand why it does for other people, and I'm glad it's there for other people. But like, for me, I find the nebulousness of the rules to be detrimental to my gameplay. Like, for me, I like to know what works and what doesn't and how it does from the get-go.
As a player or as a DM?
As a player. As a DM, it's a lot easier running Fifth Ed. Not a question. Yeah. But I don't know.
You need a DM that you can trust, and that is, that's consistent, right? It's super important that it's consistent.
Yeah.
And the problem is when you get a GM that is more adversarial, like, that really works against the game and the play.
For sure.
Where anytime a player is like, I want to do this, and there's not a rule for it, I'm like, well, let's start with a D20 and let's see what happens. Right. So I try and work with them for all the stupid, crazy things that they want to do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I want to pole vault off of my pole arm and drop kick the monster. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, give me an athletics check and let's see what this happens. And like, I'll give them maybe like a tiny bit of damage and an advantage on something they want to do, and they can knock the person down. But, if someone is like, oh, I want to go after the jugular and stab them in their jugular,
right?
Like, well, the rules don't support that. And there's a good reason for it, because how many times do you want to be stabbed in your jugular?
Yeah, exactly.
Or I've seen a player go like, well, I want to cut off their hand. I'm like, well, no, you don't, because really you've only got 2. And if you start cutting off hands, then the DM will start cutting off hands, and then nobody has any hands.
Right, but even the pole vault example, like, I want to pole vault off my pole arm and kick. Well, you can do that as long as there's not a specific feat that says pole vaulter. And then you're like, well, I'm sorry, you don't have the pole vaulter feat. Sorry, Mr. Lame Guy, just stab it with the pointy end. Like, there's your option, because you don't have the feat.
Yeah. I guess for me, it's just, I don't like the, like you described there, the adversarial component of it, where, like, I like the free-formness of games. So, like, things like Exalted, where they're doing, like, stunts and stuff, like, where you're getting add flair to what you're doing, and then you can get rewarded for that's cool. What I don't like, though, is whenever I feel like every round I have to go to court with my DM to be like, okay, so let me convince you of why I should be allowed to do this. That drives me bonkers. Like, I would rather just be like, this is what my character can do, here's how it goes. And I would like to get creative in this way. Is that cool? Cool, let's go. So, like, for me, I don't know, like, I'm probably one of a few people that are in that niche. Like, I think I am the very serious minority on that one, but for me, that rulings thing has always rubbed me wrong.
Once upon a time, you were not a minority. Then 5e happened. Now you're a minority.
Oh,
it's just like really tactical, gritty, combat as well, which 5e does not do that well. It's it's terrible for that.
Yeah, I do and I don't. Like, I think for a stream, I think the really gritty combat stuff is just too much time at the table spent X's and O'ing. It doesn't really play out well for an audience, so like we try to get away from that, and Fifth Ed is good for that. Kind of going back to more of just kind of the narrative kind of aspects of it. But I do miss some of those tactical plays. Like, I like the heavy RP and I like the heavy crunch. So like, I'm kind of like the weird combination of those two.
Every sort of game, though, we're good at getting into those 4-hour-long combats. Like, it happens.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. A friend of ours calls himself the immersive power gamer.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just that, there's just different styles of play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things we like to stress here a lot too. Is it's as we bring on more and more people, there are more and more styles and takes on gaming. Like, everyone's table approaches Dungeons and Dragons differently. or whatever game they happen to be playing differently. You know, like, because it's at the end of the day, it's about what works for that table. You know, like the individuals at that table, like what are they getting out of this experience, and how are you catering your content to make sure that everyone's having the most fun. You know, and like if you're doing that, you're doing it right. You know. Like,
yeah, I'm more inclined to, like, I don't care about the system as much as the people that are going to be playing the game.
Yeah.
So like I'll play systems I don't really care for to play with a group of people that I like playing the game with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you were talking about how you liked Face Rip a lot. That was my example of where I was doing that. It was like I couldn't stand Face Rip, but I loved the people I was playing the game with, and the game was really good narratively. I just avoided rolling whenever possible. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's just different things in games that kind of appeal to different people for different reasons, and it's one of the wonderful things about the hobby is that there's just so many ways to do it right, you know, and it's all creative. It's all figuring out what people are into, and I don't know. It's just really a lot. It's a great hobby for that reason alone. You know, even if it wasn't just a good, weekend.
I have to acknowledge another comment from the chat here. We got Game Master's Vault here saying 4-hour combats aren't as bad as taking 4 hours to open a normal door. Yeah, 110% Game Master's Vault. Anyone who takes that long to open a door in my party, my group, they're the people who will do that shit. They will stand there and look at that door for 4 hours. I can't. I'm just grabbing the handle like after 20 minutes. I'll give a chance, but
sometimes you just got to make stuff happen.
Yeah, that's right. We got a couple instigators in our group.
Play your character like you stole them.
Drive it till the wheels fall off, and then make a new one.
That's it. That makes me think of like in second edition. So second edition, we had a psionicist, and there was a door that like the DM is like, this door cannot be opened in any way whatsoever. I'm like, oh really? And like there was this telekinetic or telekinesis power, I think it was, or he was a kineticist. I don't remember the power, but he could absorb kinetic energy, and something that he could sustain over a period of time. And all of our characters just unload it on the character for like however long it was. And the amount of damage we then did, the GM was just looked at us with disgust and was like, the door is still there, but the walls around it are just gone.
Oh my god. Yeah, I think it reminds me of the Dungeon Crawl Classics thing we just did. Did this little mini tournament, and just getting through the first door. Like, all right, does it have a handle? No. Does it turn? No. Is there a button on it? No. Is there... Nope. Any symbols? Yeah, but do they do anything? No. Okay. Is there a word to say? No. Like, never getting through this door.
It was very much an exercise in reminding the people here at TT2KB that they're not dungeon crawlers by profession. Because the first thing you do is you look at your list of skills on your character sheet, because that's how Dungeon Crawl Classics works. You look at your list of skills and you say, oh, look, I have these languages I know, and it's clearly none of them. But Jeff's character is the thief. He has read languages. He can read any language if he remembers he has the skill to roll to try it. So
or succeeds at rolling.
So he comes around to it, figure out you got to do that, like. So
yeah, that's not a style of play I enjoy at all. So like, and that can happen in any game, right? That to me is more of a GMing style issue than anything, because I'm not a punitive DM, and I look at it this way: the characters live in that world all the time, but we live in those characters briefly in comparison. So the characters know more than the players do, right? So if I know that a character can do something, but the player isn't thinking about that, I'd be like, no, you would know this thing, and then move forward from there.
Yeah. In a normal game, I would have done that, but since it was tournament play against 4 other streams, as a judge, I have to sit there tight-lipped until he says, I use read languages, and then 4 hours to get through the dungeon, so I can't give them any help. They have to just figure that out.
Definitely.
It's a different approach to style, too. Like the OSR stuff seems to be more about challenging the player than it is about challenging the character. But then it's all about what is on the sheet. So it's like I'm challenging the player until the player does what I want him to do, and then it's the sheet deciding if that actually works or not. And that it's inverted.
that is kind of the problem with riddles and puzzles in the game.
Yeah.
And they've got a deep-rooted history with the game, but they don't challenge the characters, they challenge the players. And inevitably, you will get the player that knows the answer, but isn't the character that should.
Right, yeah. This is a dumb character, right. With the 5 intelligence going like, I guess I gotta break my character here real quick, and be like, yeah, it's the yellow dolphin. Yeah, cool.
So what we kind of do with that in those kind of situations is we refer to the group consciousness to
nice.
To kind of make up for the characters that should be the smarter characters, but like, how do you roleplay a 20 intelligence?
Yeah,
like,
no kidding.
Like, you can roleplay down, that's easy, but you can't roleplay up. Or, this cleric's supposed to have, like, the wisdom of Solomon, but, it's just a normal dude playing that character, You
got to keep a few hints behind some skill checks.
Yeah.
You got to keep a few hints behind a few intelligence checks to be like, okay, Mr. Smart Wizard with your 20 intellect, make this little intelligence check and I'll give you a hint, just you. The rest of the party doesn't get to hear it, and then that person gets to be, my character's smarter. He got a hint.
Yeah, and it's one of those weird things. Like, we talked about this in LARP a lot. Like the old adage was, power game your sheet, and then role play basically. So like, you'd basically make yourself a super combat character, and then your social stats didn't matter because you were just role playing anyway. And
super true at LARP.
Yeah, but then at the same time, we don't make you kick down a door in real life to prove that you're strong. So like, there was this element where people didn't want the role playing or the intelligence side of it, the actual thinking components, to be game systemized. But then it's an unfair advantage if you happen to be a social individual, And
it's true at LARP. If you were the gangrel like me until the Ventrue pulled out Dominate, then you realize that not having all those mental traits really hurt.
Well.
There was always a few skills or powers that came back and was like, okay, you know what? All of a sudden, that hurts.
Yeah, like that's a weird thing about this play, because it hits that line where you're wondering, like, what is the goal of the game? And like, if it's the riddle, should I just have them make an intelligence check or a history check or something? Oh, they passed it. Great. Okay, cool. Here's your answer. Like, there's no payoff at all. It's just like, cool, I made my roll, let's go on. So like, it's a weird.
I do have a workaround to that.
Yeah.
Oh, what you got?
I present the problems to the players, and then I don't always come up with solutions, right?
Yeah.
I just see what they throw back at me and be like, all right, that one's we've done this long enough where that seems like a good solution, or I didn't think of that, so that's way better than what I thought of. So sometimes I just do that instead.
Yeah, that's a good one. That always works out. Like, the one I always tried to do was, if the players figured it out, then I would give them like advantage on the roll to solve it in character. So like, then it was still the smart characters that figured it out technically, but as a group they got the advantage of it.
Yeah. I hate random puzzles the same way I hate random encounters.
Yeah. So we, like, our group would fight over, the social skills oftentimes, right? Like, so some people would be like, oh no, you should absolutely have to role play this out and do it that way, and not be able to just make the roll. But then, it's like the fighter never has, like you said, does there have to actually swing a sword to do the thing that they're supposed to be good at? So it's like finding that fine balance between the role playing portion and the game portion of this activity that we do.
Yeah, and they've come a long way over editions for D&D of being like, charisma is now useful. Here's entire classes that do everything based on that stat. So like, it's still dump stat for some things, and other things become dump stats for other things. So it's not as pointless as it used to be.
Although my pet peeve is like, and it seems that they seem to be leaning into this, is like, you can do like everything you need to do with your prime stat, whatever that is. So you only need to have one good stat. I kind of hate that a lot.
Yeah.
We made a staff. We did a staff fighter build, and literally you can use any stat except for Constitution to fight with a staff.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, so at that point, why not even just use a con too? So.
Right. Yeah, like my druid can use wisdom.
Yeah.
I can use Chalet. Becomes wisdom to attack and damage. Like, I guess I just right word to hit.
is. Like your monk can use Dex. Anybody can use Strength.
Yeah, I guess really dangerous for
the Hexblade can use Charisma.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Jeez.
So
yeah, that is a problem for sure. Like, 2 stats, sure, but there's always been the class that had like the 3 or 4 class, attributes they needed, and then you have the one that's like
kind of get boned.
What's that?
Rangers still kind of get boned because they need wisdom, they probably need Dex or Strength, and they need Con.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you play a hybrid character, that's the price you pay. Or when you're in just 5th edition, that's the price you pay for being called a ranger.
And Monk's the same way too, though.
Yeah, and past editions in particular. This one not quite as bad, but
yeah.
Oh god, man.
But you still you get away with Dex and Wisdom, but you still need a Con if you're going to run up there and punch things in the face.
Amen.
That's what they come back.
Hey, Vatak there, thoughts on alignment? I'm just going to tell you that episode 1 of the Wisdom Check, me and Jeff, we covered alignment thoroughly. So if you want our view on that, we are nearing the end of our time here with Dave. So I don't know if we got time for a whole alignment spiel again, but you can find entire talk about alignment there. So
let's just leave it at alignment is pointless now.
Yes.
As per the way the rules are written, I don't know why it's in the game still. I'm not opposed to having it in the game, but if you're going to put it there, make it mean something.
Exactly. Yeah. Our first episode of the Wisdom Check, we originally thought we were going to be a argument show, kind of in the vein of ESPN. Yeah. And our first topic, of course, was alignment, and so we decided to duke it out on that. And
that's a good way to start.
Yeah.
That'll end some friendships.
Take that, Dustin. Yeah, well, that's our friendship in a nutshell. He and I, we knew we could do a show because we basically spend all day, every day, arguing with each other. So
perfect.
And we're still friends somehow.
And then we started doing the show about 3 episodes in. We're like, we don't argue as much as we thought. We kind of agree with too much. We need to start having guests on the show.
Oh man. Well, yeah. So as Dustin pointed out, we are at the end of the show here. So let's make sure everyone knows exactly where they can find all your content. If you're putting out anything new that you want them to be focused on, anything you need to plug, just this is the time for that.
So if you search Nerdarchy through any of the social media, any of the platforms, we will come up for sure. Nerdarchy.com is our website. You can find the store over there. We actually put out a lot of content over there, as well as addition to the obviously the YouTube channel. We do 3 videos a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We've been doing daily live chats on our new channel, Nerdarchy Live, which that one might be harder to find. It doesn't come up quite as readily, but
I found it today.
What's that?
I found it today, so I was there watching.
Yeah, so we decided to divide up our long form content, our short form content. So our live chats and our gameplays and stuff will be living over there. But yeah, Nerdarchy, all the places.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we didn't talk about it during the session here because of COVID, but in the future you're looking at conventions as well. So
yeah. Nerdarchy, the convention year 1 was supposed to happen this year, but apocalypse next year again.
Well, definitely forward to that.
Yeah, and where is that going to end up being?
Right now we're looking at Oaks, PA. That's where it was supposed to be, and that's where it's postponed till. So it's like 18 miles north of Philadelphia.
Gotcha. All right, perfect. Yeah, so everyone be sure to check that out whenever that time comes around and we actually get out of our houses and return to normal society so that we can then leave it and go to a convention. Because that'll be fantastic.
I went today to a foreign land called Olive Garden. Serve food there, who knew?
So Dustin, why don't you go ahead and tell people what they can find on our channel throughout the week.
All right, so Monday nights here at 10 p.m. Central Time, you find me and Jeff with a guest every week for the Wisdom Check. And Jeff, I want to say that next week is maybe a little bit of a big deal.
Yeah, I think this is our reschedule from a few weeks ago. Let me double check, make sure I'm not speaking out of my ass.
You're right. I believe you're correct.
Yes, it is in fact that time. We are going to be talking with Alex Gygax. So he's going to be coming on the show to come join us, and we're going to get to talk to him a little bit about the family history of Dungeons and Dragons. See how that goes. Yeah, it's really cool.
Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Central Time, another member of TT2KB here, Cameron, he does Bardic Knowledge, where he makes game music live here on stream. You can watch him pull out all the cool little tips and tricks and everything he has and put together some game music. He did Shadowrun for our one shot last week. I don't know if he's announced what he's going to be doing for this week, but he was looking to branch out now that he's gotten most of our Everstore music out of the way. So you have to tune in Tuesday, find out what he's doing. Wednesday, 10 p.m. Jeff there runs our Pathfinder 2nd edition game. It's the Fall of Plaguestone is the module we're running from Paizo. So tune in 10 p.m. Wednesday for that. Thursday's usually our video game night. The guys are currently shuffling through a few different options for some upcoming video games that we might be playing on Thursdays. That brings us around to Saturday. And this coming Saturday, 10 p.m., our 5e game Everstorm returns. And that'll be Levi, of course, with the...
Thank you for the sub.
He continued. I thought Fruitzilla made an appearance. I was like, oh, man, Fruit's back. But nope, it's Maddie Morse continuing to give sub. Thank you, Maddie. So 5e... 10 p.m. this Saturday for Everstorm. We'll get to watch our characters fight each other, probably.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be talking about doing your Zweihander campaign here soonish. So next month.
Just to give a little update for people who maybe have been following along, I have my 5 players cast. I've got Lindy from Laugh Love Lindy who's going to be playing. If you're familiar with Lindy and her channel. She's going to be one of my players. Jeff here is going to be playing, representing TT2KB here. We got DM Chuck from the Defenders of Kobold, also a community GM for Zweihander. He'll be over here playing. We have Hope Lavelle from D&D Beyond's Beyond Heroes. She has agreed she's going to be coming on to play. We got Alex, who is one of the writers from Mutant Masterminds, going to be here also. And am I missing that one? That's everyone.
This should be the whole cast. That's 5 of us.
That's the whole cast.
It's going to be a fun cast.
I'm super excited that the people I was able to collect for this game. It's going to be Horror in Huttenberg. It is the sequel to my Zweihander game I ran last year, Terror and Treefell. So just keep your eye up for information. They'll be doing character creation live June 14th, 5 p.m. on a Sunday. If you're not doing anything else on Sunday, come by and check it out. If you haven't seen Zweihander character creation, it's kind of a one-of-a-kind thing.
Yeah,
it's pure madness. So,
and the last thing we got to plug really here before we get out of here, this is the longest plug session of all time. But I want to make sure that in these days you're making sure you're going out and supporting people. There's a lot of people that make their living exclusively going to conventions, making art, running game stores, the whole 9 yards. There's a lot of people out there that can use your help and support. Among those people, of course, is my dad, David Lee Pancake. So I want you to make sure you check out his Patreon. Check out his Twitch account and his YouTube. I'm just realizing Twitch is misspelled on that. I'll have to fix that. But you want to make sure you check out all that stuff. He's going to be live streaming him sculpting some stuff. This Sunday, he's going to be sculpting our characters, actually. So he's making Kodo, the Dragonborn Paladin, right now. And you get to watch that live. He's also going to be live streaming on Facebook. And he does that, I think that is Thursdays. So he'll be on there. He's making an owl. So tune in 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Sundays, and then I believe it's 7 or 8 o'clock Eastern Time on the other two. And that should be all of it.
If you get a chance, join our Discord, because our last show DM'd art. Whenever our DM Levi decides he's doing art, he does it when he feels like. I can't tell you when he'll be on next. You just have to be in the Discord when he says, hey, I'm going to do some art today, and then you can watch him do some art, because that's how he rolls. So... We've got to give Levi a shout out, but I can't tell you when he's going to be on next.
It's impossible. So, Dustin, why don't you find us a raid? And I want to say thank you so very much for joining us tonight, Dave. It's been amazing. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we'd love to have you around again.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, Dustin, where are we going tonight?
Fabled 42, it says tonight is doing a charity stream for some tabletop stuff, so we're going to head over there and see what they got going on.
See if we can help out over there with some of our folks. So everyone that came tonight, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll take you on over to this next show and see what they're up to.
See you tomorrow.